Hello and welcome to round 2 of season 2's School Strike for Climate and Green Music Australia's Climate Fridays. I'm your host, back again, Nkechi Anele, and before we start, we acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which we work and live and recognise their continuing connection to land, water and community. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded, and this always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Climate Fridays is that energizer you need to get you active and keep you active during the COVID pandemic in stopping fossil fuels expansion and strengthening the solidarity between First Nations, school strikers and the Australian music scene. We're going to kick things off with a great friend of mine. He's an awesome musician who has been making great music and waves in the Australian music scene. Bobby Alu, welcome to Climate Fridays.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. It's an honour.
Before we start, I wanted to ask you a quick question. Because we're performing and having these discussions with young activists, I was curious to find out, what was your first kind of initial involvement with activism and environmental issues?
Yeah, it was through music actually. Just being involved in music, and what I found is the music that I was into lent itself to lots of different activism and lots of artists that were kind of helping spread beautiful things that the media wouldn't, and so that was bands I was watching were all getting into it, and it inspired me to find out more about certain things.
That's really cool, and we're about to hear one of your amazing songs, so I'll let you get to it.
Sweet.
When you don't feel so nice, and you blame the way it all just felt. You could stay in the dark so frightened, or march on toward the horizon. I feel too much sometimes, so I let it all flow inside. The feeling is lighting up a fire and feeding my deepest desire. So what you got to give this a need. We gotta push further, make it better, stop the fire. What you got to give this a need. We gotta live right and feed the fire. While we make our own way, we gain from thy neighbor when we both exchange. We are all blessed with decision. We just gotta find the right reasons to make it better, stoke the fire. What you got to give this a need. We gotta push further, make it better, stoke the fire. What you got to give this a need. We gotta live right and feed the fire. Slip and slide, can I have it all? What you got in store? If you give a little, you might get a little more. A little less chatting, you might hear a little more. Time goes, hold it back. Don't worry about the noise outside. Like a bird in flight, on my way to the other side. And I feel too much sometimes, so I let it all flow inside. The feeling is lighting up a fire. I feed in my deepest desire. So, oh, got to give destiny. We gotta push further, make it there to stoke the fire. But you got to give destiny. We gotta live right and feed the fire. 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 Fire.
That is so amazing. Bobby Alu with the track Fire from his latest album, which is called Flow. One of the interesting things that I know about this album, because I think I've spoken to people about this, is the connection that you're singing about the flow in music and also the flow to do with water. And water seems to be a very important issue in Australia right now. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, 100%, definitely so.
What's your connection as somebody who does talk about this idea of flow in their music with nature, and how important is that to you as a musician?
Yeah, it really is. I think when I try to think about the feeling of flow, it's like when time goes by and things just work, and they have ups and they have downs. And, I think that's happens in all of life, in the way we feel in the morning. But it's also with the nature. It's also with the tides, and with the seasons, and the country has a flow, like every continent has one. And I think that it's kind of our duty, because we are of the earth, to not mess up that flow. And there's lots of things that we do, like fracking and so forth, that really stop the water flow. And it's a simple concept, but it's actually it just stuffs everything up when it's not in flow.
Speaking about fracking and people who are at the forefront of changing policy and what's happening politically at the moment, especially in the NT, is Tish King, who is the Seed community organizer at Seed, who's our hotline tip person, getting in some hot content for us now. And we're also joined by student striker for climate, Liv Heaton, also, who's joining us for this conversation. I'll start off with you first, Tish. Hi, Liv. Sorry. Can you tell me, I know you got some hot news straight from the NT, so I would love, first off, to find out what that information is, and then we can dive into a collective conversation with all of us here.
Yeah, definitely. So, hello everyone. My name is Tish, and I am the community organizer at Seed. And before I do begin, I would like to acknowledge country, knowing that we are all in different areas. Where I am on the land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation on Naarm. Loving it. It's a bit cool. And I would actually like to acknowledge other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people that may be in the audience, or that I also identify as first person in the space that they come from. So Millie, I did get updates from Millie. So you would have all heard Millie last week with Nick, and what they've been doing is they've teamed up with some other organisations, with Get Up and Original Power, but they've been going around to communities and enrolling mob who haven't yet enrolled over the last ever, but knowing that the importance of enrolling could actually change the way that decisions are being made in the entity, and that it allows this to elevate those voices in communities. So what you sort of mentioned was that it's been, there's been some disparity in the last few years, that there's not a lot of mob enrolled. And so by going to community, they've been able to, help them enroll. And then in the last couple of weeks, enroll them, help them actually vote for pre-polling. So the big day actually is tomorrow. And it's the MT government, the polling booths are only open for only half an hour in communities. It's outrageous. So by Seed being on the ground has been just that all of that work has been to help them and know that those votes count and want to have those votes count and be included, and the importance of that. I sort of mentioned before that it was about a few years ago, a Longy man from East Arnhem, Mark Guyula, he won the seat of Nullarbor in the 2016 election by 8 votes. So SEED have been promoting that every vote matters.
That's so important. Can I ask you, Tish, what, as a general question, I'd love to find out how you got involved and got into like social politics and helping the environment, helping your people, helping the world.
Yeah, I think that's a really great question, because we all sort of start somewhere, don't we, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I was studying ocean science on Yugin Bay country, so on the Gold Coast, and one of our biggest issues, which is sort of now still happening during whale season, is shark nets and drum lines. And it was just ridiculous. One day, my friends and I had swum out to the nets because I thought it was a joke that whales were getting caught in the nets. And we went, it was probably about maybe 100, 200 meters offshore. And we had found like other bycatch trapped in these nets. And we saw a baby dolphin. And it was the most horrific scene I had actually seen, swimming out, and the mother was trying to rescue their dolphin who was drowning. And I was just like, no, this has got to stop. And I think, Facebook, with their amazing little algorithms, SEED had popped up. And I actually became a volunteer with SEED first up.
So cool.
And it was just, as a proud Torres Strait Islander, I thought it was just sort of me doing ocean science, and I thought, oh, maybe it's just me that wants to save the environment. But to be connected to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people across the nation was actually really rewarding, knowing that I had the same values as other mob, and that was just really important. Caring for country to me has been such an important aspect in my life, because as a proud Torres Strait Islander, our islands and our oceans are who we are, and our way of life and our languages. We are so deeply connected to our islands. And this applies to, Aboriginal people with country, that we're so connected spiritually that when country and islands are hurting, we are hurting.
Wow. I really feel that. That's a really strong and powerful way to say it. I felt like that really hit me right here. We're also joined by student striker for change, Liv Heaton. I'd be really interested to find out, as a teenager and seeing the future of this country lay before you, how did you first become involved in activism, and what work is happening with student strikers for change, for climate change, during this time?
Hi, I'd first like to acknowledge that we're all on stolen land wherever we are in Australia. I'm speaking from Darugland, which is where I live, and I just want to pay my respects to everyone. So I'm a part of School Strike for Climate, where we're teenagers fighting for the climate in the future. I first started getting involved with activism when I was very young. When I was about 8, we had protests to save this little patch of land behind my house that was home to a lot of native animals. Unfortunately, we didn't save it, but we did manage to hold them off quite a while. And just recently, this year, I've been getting very involved with School Strike for Climate, and we currently have our September 25th event coming up. So where we are holding a gas mobilization. Yeah, it's really exciting, and there's going to be something online, and the matter of how we protest is subject to change in these wild and wicked times. But I'm really excited to see where this takes us in the realm of protesting and protesting climate change. So yeah.
One of the things I love that I think we've all brought up in different ways is the way that activism connects people and empowers people. Is that how you feel as a student striker as well?
Yeah, I feel like it really does connect people, because we all have very similar interests. We have different ways that we can connect with each other, and so many people in the climate movement are very, very lovely people, and just the way that we can all work together to fight for a better future. We all have a common goal. Just really amazing to get to work with lots of other really bright young people.
That's so cool to hear. Oh, I think she may have disappeared just for now, but let's continue on. Like you said, voting is really important, especially for First Nations when this is their land first and foremost. What can young students spread across Australia who want to be involved with Seed Mob and help out with activism plans, what can they do? And where's a good place to start if somebody's looking for something like a starting point?
I think importantly is, check out what's happening locally. There's always sort of like, a small team of like a bigger organization in your local areas. If not, they can hit us up, and we can find out and connect them to, have those critical and important conversations. I mean, I think the first step is just, just doing some research, seeing what's out there. But, even connecting to us, there's so many ways through social media. One of us will be able to sort of, get back at you and we can team you up, definitely for sure. But I think right now in our landscape, I think, standing in solidarity with other organizations is going to be an important thing. As Liv said, there's this big event happening September 25th, and to be a part of that really just shows, how the young voices in Australia, what they want to do, and how they want their futures to be. And I really liked what brother here, Bobby, was saying about his song Flow, because about water wells and all of that sort of stuff, because water is life. And in the NT, we have so many desert springs, and plains with amazing bushland. And if fracking were to go ahead, there's just going to be so many risks to our wells. And what does that mean to our First Nations people who on the ground in the NT, and not just in the NT, across Australia? If you breathe air and drink water, this issue concerns you.
Definitely. I feel as well as a non-Indigenous person occupying this land, water has definitely been a big part of growing up in Australia, whether that's going to the beach, going to water holes to swim, even outside of the basic survival needs of clean air and fresh water. It's so fundamental to our lifestyle across the country. I'd love to open it up for anyone if you've got questions for each other. As much as I love talking, I'd love to know if you've got questions for each other that you're curious to find out the answer to.
Shame, no one talking. No, that's good.
I guess there's another thing that I want to talk about, and maybe this is just from my experience, but also there's a generation gap in the way that we were educated about this country and about this land and understanding connection to place. And I was really curious to hear actually from Bobby, growing up with a Samoan background and the connection to land and country that they have, very similar in essence to the First Nations here, and how is that a relatable feeling for you, understanding First Nations connections to land as Samoans do with their land?
Yeah, definitely. It's a good point, and I think it's quite simple. It's a simple concept, but it does seem so foreign in society right now. We're in such a rush that we don't stop to just look around and feel what's going on, or in the space and in where you are in this very moment. And I think that's means that we sort of get disconnected with our elements. You know, we get disconnected with how important water is and how important the earth is and the soil and the birds and all this stuff that works together. You know, I always found it fascinating. My mum and dad were really into Polynesian navigation because that's how, you know, they went around all the islands for hundreds of years. And, you know, the navigators used to put their hand in the water to feel the currents and they'd watch the birds and the wind. And there were so many things that they called upon in order to get where they needed to go. And they could do it, you know, and they did it for hundreds of years. And so, you know, now it's getting lost, you know, that art, and it's not just to get places, but just to kind of know that something doesn't feel right, you know.
Yeah. Liv, I was really curious to ask you, as someone who's a part of this amazing digital age of also digital activists, as well as the people that have literally filled our streets in the last few environmental protests and been at the forefront of that. How have you found being in COVID and kind of taking that more digital side and also kind of educating people who might not understand how effective digital activism can be with connecting with people?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question, because as young people, we are known as people who are glued to our phones. That's how we connect and contact each other, and that's how it is, and I think that's how it will be. Like before, in the olden days, we had people, you know, they had letters. Some people would write letters to each other twice a day, sometimes even, and if we take our digital age, if we look at it, it's actually more accessible than, say, an in real life protest. However, there are problems such as internet, Wi-Fi, that kind of thing. We had our May 15th strike that was online. It was a live stream, and that went really well. It was in the midst of the quarantine, and everyone was feeling a bit low, and they brought May 15th live stream along, and it went really well. But I think that moving online is not such a terrifying idea, because the way that we spread information now, everyone gets the information from the news, but online. They get it from Instagram, they get it from Twitter and Facebook. That's how we communicate as humans. And while striking in real life is super important, and I think it's really, really good, but we can also explore the possibilities of protesting online and the online actions that we can do. And I think that would be a really interesting way to go into the future.
As a school striker, how did it feel to be like a young person at the forefront of like demanding change and demanding that our country be treated better than it had from by previous generations? Because as somebody watching that from the outside, it felt like an amazing movement to be part of, especially hearing voices so young who are kind of the changing of the guard, like you will be the next people to carry this country.
Yeah, it really excites me that our generation has so much energy and so much passion to go into these subjects. We have all our energy goes towards these events. We drop school for it and we go in, and just the feeling of being a part of that movement really makes me feel like we stand a chance against everything. Even with everything going on, we still have this massive backup of thousands and millions of people just waiting to go, waiting to make a difference. And I think that's really beautiful how we can do that. It's totally possible. We have the people, we have the energy, we have the passion ready to go. And I think that's the beauty of young people in this generation, especially.
Tish, I can see your gorgeous smile broadening with everything Liv's saying. I feel like you share that sentiment of like this uprising power coming from the youth.
Absolutely. Hearing Liv, like, I just can hear her, like, it's really motivating. And I think it just really makes me reflect that, you know, coming together like this with all of you mob, like, is just a step into the future. Like, the reality is that change won't happen unless without massive mobilization of people everywhere from different backgrounds, different industries. The effort thus far have fallen short, of overcoming these persistent refusal by these, powerful elites and corporations and governments, to meet the responsibilities and obligations in their efforts to stand in the way of social change. And just, I'm just feeling really empowered by it. Like, it's a Friday afternoon and, people should be clocking off, and I'm just like, I'm getting ready. Like, yeah, this is change. And I just love the space that green music and School Strike for Climate have sort of made here. That, like having, people playing music and just sharing that and how they want to, see the change in their industry and how we can come from those different levels of generations. But I guess it just comes together how we have to take, collective action. And so, I applaud Liv. Like, I wish I had School Strike for Climate back when I was a young pup going through high school. Gosh, that would have been so deadly.
Liv, I'd really love to ask you if students are watching this or young people are watching this and they want to become a part of School Strike for Change, what's the best way to become an activist with you and join the movement?
Well, we have a very good process called Onboarding, which you can get onto through the School Strike website. Ask your friends, because we have a lot of people in the network, and chances are you might even know someone who's already in the network. So just ask around even. And if you want to start a local group, you can even contact me. You can contact anyone you know that is in the School Strike network, and they'll forward your message on, and you can start a group at any point at any time with anyone. Like, we're very open to everyone joining. So please do.
That's amazing. And if people want to become a part of something, there's an amazing event happening on September 25th, which you briefly talked about, which is the Fridays for Future Global Day of Action. Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So September 25th is our gas mobilization day, where we want to end gas productions. We don't like them. They're very bad for the environment. They destroy water sources. They destroy ground sources. And the way that the government is currently leading COVID relief is that they're funding gas projects with our COVID relief funds, which is something that is absolutely appalling. And we really need to stop this. So September 25th is all about that. You can join up and start your own event. You can sign up and say that you're coming to an event on our website, on the School Strike website. We really feel that our COVID recovery should not be gas-led. If we want to make a change from what we had before was not normal, and this COVID situation has just emphasized that what we had really wasn't normal. It wasn't something that we want. It's not something that's going to be renewable in the future. We won't really have a future if it continues this way. So now is the time to start, when we're having this massive restart of society, and just try and start to have a bit more of a green future, even if it's no gas, at least no gas.
Yeah.
That's a start.
And that's something that we're talking about, the people that you can do right now. If you're younger, you can sit down and have a conversation with your parents about wanting to keep Australia greener for the future. And you can also go on schoolstrikeforclimate.com. The 4 is a number in there. What we're talking about is the government turning to fracking to get gas and oil out of the earth. And it has the potential to put poisons and toxins into the water, land, and to the air. So what we're asking is that people sign a petition, which they can do through seedmob.org. Am I saying this right? .au. I'm really bad with emails about things. I should get better at this. But what you can do if you're younger, you can have a discussion with your parents. If you use Origin Energy, they rely heavily on their customers and customer feedback. And you can also write to them saying that you do not approve of them fracking this land. What else can they do with Seed Mob? Tish, there's heaps of stuff that's on your website, but you know your stuff better than I do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. As you mentioned, if they go to online and we have a pledge, and what that is actually doing is that we're taking these pledges to Origin AGM in October and illustrating that they should have say 50,000 concerns of why they need to make changes. Not just that, if you actually also head onto our Instagram, you'll see a link tree. We've got an Origin survey. It takes like about 5 minutes, and it's just a simple like yes, no question, but it's just a quick survey too, and we're going to add that to when we head to the AGM and say, you should be concerned about this. People, you are going to lose customers because you advertise that you've got support from traditional owners. Why are you lying? Like, I don't get that. You're saying that you're sustainable. No, you're not. Why are you lying to the people? It's crazy. So yeah, head to that. Slide into our DMs. Someone will answer. But yeah, to our socials, and we'll be able to help out.
That's awesome. And I think something that's been brought out is how we can all work together and all inspire each other to keep going. Liv Heaton from Student Strike for Climate and Tish King from Seed Mob, thank you so much for joining me on this amazing Climate Fridays to kind of get us through the next kind of weekend and into the next week. Bobby Alu is going to bless us with yet another beautiful song.
You ladies are deadly, unbelievable, very inspiring. Thanks for all your information. This day I've woken before I've even spoken. Which way am I going? Let's go find out. When you're moving in up, suddenly you're in the rhythm of this day. Of this day, I'm moving to the rhythm of this day. You be tapping, you can't stop clapping, cause you're in the rhythm of this day. Of this day, I'm moving to the rhythm of this day. 2 days, it's wasted, it's not you I'm blaming. I keep on relating how you make it feel, cause you are affected, and with the breath you change it, always dominated. I am a slave when you're moving in up, but suddenly you're in the rhythm of this day. Of this day, I'm moving to the rhythm of this day. Tapping, you can't stop clapping, cause you're in the rhythm of this day. Of this day, I'm moving to the rhythm of this day. When I woke this morning, I knew I had an edge. I was a step ahead before I left my bed. It doesn't always work this way in the ebb and flow. But how was I to know? Cause this is the way it goes. I can set the takes and put a picture on your face. So here's the tiny happy moment I can arrange. And then week after next, I might be a mess. So please feel free to take the lead, and you can give me strength. You give me hope. I say hope. You give me hope. Yeah, you give me hope. When you're moving in up, rhythm of this day. When you tap it, you can't stop clapping. You see the rhythm of this day. Of this day, of this day, I'm walking to the rhythm of this day. Of this day, of this day, I'm walking to the rhythm of this day. Of this day, of this day, I'm walking to the rhythm of this day. Of this day, of this day, I'm walking to the rhythm of this day.
That was fantastic. Love having a little jam vibe on a Friday. It's so great.
Friday.
Friday. Music keeping us active. Thank you so much, Bobby Alu, for your amazing music. And people should check out your great music and your amazing albums. They're everywhere. And follow you on socials as well at Bobby Alu. Yeah?
Good, yeah.
That's where you're hanging.
That's me.
We also want to shout out, if you're interested in connecting with Seed Mob, it's seedmob.org.au. They've got a petition that is also, you can reach through their Instagram, which is at Seed Mob. There is also School Strike for Climate. School Strike and for the number climate. If you search for that with social media like Instagram, all the different ones will pop up. You can also start your own group and help us stand up for our country and ensure that it has a bigger and brighter future. My name's Nkechi. Thank you so much for joining us here for Climate Fridays. We'll be back next week, keeping you energized during the pandemic and making sure that we can keep up the activism to stop fossil fuel expansion and strengthen the solidarity and the power that we all have working together between First Nations, school strikers and the Australian music scene. Have a lovely weekend and see you next Friday.